You're listening to Three Kitchens podcast, hosted by your favorite home cooks, Erin Walker and Heather Dyer. Join us for inspiration and a new recipe every Tuesday. Welcome to Three Kitchens podcast. I am Heather. I'm here with Erin. Hello, Erin.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Excellent.
It is the season of, it's spring, and there's all kinds of ingredients that come and go very quickly at this time of year, right? That come in season and then are gone because they become something else in this
I
case.
like to call them the ephemeral foods because they're
Ooh.
here only for a short period of time.
And then they're gone. Yes, it's true. So recently I had said to you, and like everybody I know, if you see fiddleheads in the store, let me know because I'm trying to find some. And I feel like every year I think of them, but by the time I've thought, hey, maybe I should, they're gone.
Yeah,
I think the season here is very short.
I think it is.
But this year, my friend Erin found some fiddlehead.
I grocery shop with my Oma, and we're yipping and yapping as we go through the produce section, and then I stop and go,
And then you phone me.
oh my goodness, hold that thought. I have to call Heather right now.
It was perfect. Worked out perfectly. And then I
Yeah.
thought, I don't know how long they'll last.
Yeah.
Because you don't always know with fresh green things. And I feel like my fridge is the place where things go to be
die.
forgotten and die. It's, for whatever reason, I can't seem to get it quite right. It always feels too cold for the delicate stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I don't want to keep those fiddleheads in the fridge for too long, just in case.
And they come packaged and wrapped, so they're not a piece of produce that you can sort of suss out how they are by feeling and looking at them or picking out the individual ones like you would with like mushrooms or beans. They come cello wrapped, so you're snooping in the package.
Yeah, and you don't know if you should open that seal. Like, is it a bad thing? Once they hit the air, are they like super perishable or what?
Yeah.
So I was like, nope, I'm going to do something with these fiddleheads. So here we are, same day. It's been like...
You were the master of turning that around because I dropped these ingredients off at your house and I think I made lunch quickly. I had a phone call and then I get a text saying, I dropped off the food in your barbecue. And I thought,
What?
how did you make that happen?
I did it very quickly. I was like, I have time, so do it.
I am loving that it was quick and easy because it was delicious.
Oh, okay, good. Well,
I'm quite anxious to know the details.
okay, well, let's first talk about fiddleheads. If you're not familiar, my son actually just asked me because I was like, I gotta go and talk to Erin about fiddleheads. You people be quiet out here. He's like, what's a fiddlehead? He's yelling after me as I'm running out of the room. What's a fiddlehead? And I'm okay. So a fiddlehead is the kind of new shoot in the fern plant. So when the fern first comes up out of the ground in the spring, the frond is curled up really tight, like it looks.
My fern is coming up right now in my garden.
Yeah, mine hasn't yet. If you have an ostrich fern, which is what I have, they're the kind of tall, they're a skinnier plant and they grow up tall. That's an ostrich fern, and that's what I have too. And apparently that's the ones we eat in North America anyways. Those are the ferns.
Oh, cool.
We eat the fiddleheads from. What I don't know is if you were to snip your fiddleheads in your backyard fern, would it keep growing or would you kind of stunt the plant? That I don't know. I didn't see that in my
There was nothing about harvesting and
research.
growing your own ferns.
No, it's more like foraging, in which case you probably don't care what happens to it. You're just...
Well, you don't want to over forage so that they come back next year. And so if you're foraging, there's probably a good plentiful supply of ferns. I don't think ferns grow great in our climate here because we're so dry.
Yeah. If you're lucky enough to be in a place, so you would probably know from previous years, or you go suss it out the year before.
Yeah.
Where are they growing?
Mm-hmm.
So that next year I can come back early in the spring and be on top of it and catch them, because you don't want them to unfurl. You don't want them to open up, because then that's not a fiddlehead anymore and it's not what you want to eat.
Yeah. When Sally comes back with her basket of fiddleheads, you go and follow her to find out.
Where were you, Sally?
Where did you go, Sally?
Where did you get those? Okay, so apparently the fiddleheads are slightly toxic. So you're not just going to go out and like snip and eat fiddleheads in the wild.
Okay.
I don't know how toxic, that I couldn't quite figure out, but I guess they have trace amounts of toxins that can cause illness. So I'm not sure, if it's like a food poisoning kind of effect it would have on you.
Okay.
But you don't want to just eat them straight from the plant. So first you have to boil them.
Okay. Good to know.
Wash them really well and then boil them, and then they're good to use. Because I did see salads and I was like, well, if they're toxic, how do you make a salad with it? But you'd still have to blanch it first, or steam. Okay. So what I did was I took all my little fiddleheads, and the point where they were cut off the plant turns a little bit brown at that end, right? So I just snipped off with my little paring knife. I just cut off the brown ends. I threw them in a sink of cold water and swished them around. Mm-hmm. And you just there's like little kind of brown papery skin that kind of sticks to them. And you want to just wash all that bit. It's just sort of, I think it's dry from the previous year. It kind of comes up with the shoots. Like when you see them in your garden, I think you'll see what I mean.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You're gonna kind of rinse all that off. Then I boiled them in salted water for 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
And then into an ice bath to shock them, stop cooking them.
Right.
And then they're good to go. And that water that I blanched them in, that I boiled them quickly, was like brown. Like it was so dark. I had to fish around to make sure I got all the fiddleheads out.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Interesting. That must be the toxin.
Whatever. I know. I was like, don't drink it.
That water doesn't go into the compost.
No, I know, because normally if I blanch or boil a vegetable, I let the water cool off. I just leave the pot and then I go and dump it in my garden, right?
Yes, I do.
I was like, this doesn't look good. This one went down the sink because it was so dark. And they looked clean.
Wow.
Like I had cleaned them. It's not like they were dirty.
No, it must be something coming out of them as they boil. How cool is that?
Cool, I guess. Yeah, but at least you know that you've cleansed them of their evil.
Yes, that's probably a good sign.
Yeah. I think so. I didn't know to expect that exactly. I was reading some information and some instructions off the Spruce Eats website, which
That's an easy go-to. They're like the Wikipedia of step-by-steps, right?
Yeah, and they have good basic scientific information about food. Not getting really deep in the woods with it, but like
a good first point to start your research. Totally.
Yeah, like just some good basic information, how to avoid making yourself sick. And then a lot of people like to just saute them, but I thought there's got to be something else we can do. I guess when I gave it to you, I kept out one fiddlehead that had been blanched, like it had been boiled, but I didn't use it in the recipe so that you could taste just a straight up fiddlehead.
Yeah. So my first question, when you said I have one that is separate from what I made for you to taste, I looked at it and I said, so has this been like washed and cooked?
I wouldn't
because I didn't I knew it had been washed, but like, had it been cooked in any way? Like, is it just like a fresh one, or has it been cooked? Was my first question. I should have
specified
because I couldn't tell, and I knew nothing about this, so I trusted you. And if I would have read that it could be poison, then I knew you would have cooked it first.
Yeah, I would have told you.
You would have warned me. Don't eat this thing I gave you. But I couldn't tell that you had processed it in any way. Like it kept its shape nicely. It didn't get mushy. Mm-hmm. And I was surprised at how unbitter it was.
Yeah. Had you expected it to be bitter?
Don't know why, but I expected bitterness. Because I've never, ever once in my life eaten a fiddlehead to my knowledge. So
Neither have I.
I didn't know. So I really expected it to be bitter and it wasn't. And I was like, this is kind of delightful. And I squeezed a little bit of the lemon on it too. And I was like, this is validly good.
I thought it reminded me, I'd never eaten one either. And I didn't have any preconceived notion. I was like,
okay.
In fact, I sort of thought maybe like a Brussels sprout, which I don't really like. And so I was thinking like I had this idea that I don't know if I like them. I don't know why. It was, to me, a bit like asparagus, like a real nice, thin, new, like spring asparagus. That's what it reminded me of.
But yeah, the flavor.
I don't know what else to compare it to. It's just green. I don't know how else to describe it.
Green?
Yeah.
Just like the curacao tastes blue. Heather made us some green today.
I'm sorry. That's not descriptive.
I know that's a terrible description, but I would agree in it. I would I would agree. There's not a good way to describe it. It's so mild. It's not strong.
But it's not sweet, really. It's kind of
not sweet. It's not cabbagey.
Tastes like a green plant. I don't know. It's tasty.
It's not that it's bland. I think you would definitely, you cooked it in the salted water, so that's adding to it. I could see just sauteing it with some sort of oil and like pepper and the lemon juice. Like that was all great. Yeah. A very mild asparagus.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with you on that. Let's go there.
Yeah. I've been thinking about it and I couldn't think of any. I mean, I only ate one just like you did, but I was like, I don't know how else to describe it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not offensive. Let's put it that way. Like sometimes like a Brussels sprout or whatever, like
asparagus sometimes.
And asparagus sometimes, like you turn your nose up at it because you're just like, oh, this is not good. Yeah,
it can be kind of like you said, bitter.
You want those other things with it. It's overly bitter or it's, the texture's not the greatest or whatever. Like I found it very agreeable. It's the most agreeable vegetable that is green.
This is the funniest conversation about an ingredient we've had in a while.
Oh, this is a good one. Yeah.
Nobody knows how to describe it. I would love to know if listeners are familiar with fiddleheads and they eat them regularly. If they have a way of describing the flavor, please chime in on social media and tell everybody what it's supposed to taste like.
Give us some better descriptors.
Yeah, I don't know. What does it taste like? I want to compare it to something else, but I don't know what. Okay.
I love that about taste. I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is kind of fun. It's an interesting one for sure. So when we come back, I'm going to tell you what I did. I did something a bit more. We did not just saute the fiddleheads. We had them in a different recipe, and I'll tell you about that when we come back.
Hey listeners, I hope you're enjoying this fun episode. Did you know you can find this recipe on our website? We post all the recipes for each episode on threekitchenspodcast.com, and we even include recipes that we're not making for the podcast, just things we make every day in our kitchen. Leave a comment, tell us what you like about the recipe, or what you don't like, or how you zhuzhed it up. You can find the link in our show notes, or type it in, threekitchenspodcast.com. Okay, so let me tell you what I made with the fiddleheads. I have this cookbook. You'll remember it's called Bisous et Brioche. It's classic French recipes from Laura Bradbury and Rebecca Wellman. Oh, and in it, so you're talking French recipes, and we didn't talk about this when you discussed fiddlehead research. Where typically are they found?
I just looked at what grows in North America.
Okay.
Which was the ostrich fern. But I think ferns grow all over the world in a moist, not too hot. I don't know.
Yeah, they must just be worldwide.
I imagine they're in lots of places. Maybe different varieties of fern. I'm not exactly sure about that.
I wonder how the toxicity level changes.
Now you're getting too
I'm sorry. Let's go back to the food.
Okay, the food. So in my cookbook, in my French cookbook, there is a recipe for an artichoke and asparagus tart. And I remembered there was this tart in this book. And so I went and looked at it because I thought, asparagus seems kind of similar. So maybe we could do a fiddlehead tart. And in this one, she's got leeks. And I was like, oh, leeks. That is also kind of a nice springy veggie that I
And
think
it's
would pair well.
mild.
Yeah,
It
nice.
doesn't overpower.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like leeks. So I thought I'm gonna be inspired by this recipe. I didn't follow it exactly, but I was inspired by it to make a fiddlehead and leek tart, cheese tart. Really, there was quite a bit of cheese in there.
There was
At
some
the end of
good
the day,
cheese in there.
just a bit of cheese. So I used your trusty pie
Oh,
pastry, rolled it out roughly into a rectangle. In hindsight, I think a like a good old frozen butter puff pastry probably would have actually worked better. I wasn't crazy with the way my pastry turned out, but I think it was because of all the other things that went on top. Like I think it was too heavy for the pastry. I don't know. Maybe you'll have some insight into that, but let me tell you what went on here. Okay, so I made up my pastry. I par baked it. I think that's what you call it when you bake it.
Yep.
Poke a few holes in it with a fork so it doesn't get too puffy, and you bake it a little bit first, and then I sautéed my leeks with butter and garlic, and then I put in my fiddleheads and a splash of white wine and some thyme and salt and pepper. And so then I set those aside, and then I had my pie crust.
Yeah.
And I put my veggies on there, and then I thought, because I had all this cheese, I had Gruyere and Emmental cheese. I had grated them, and I went to put on cheese, and I was like, it's all covering all the. I wanted to see the fiddleheads, and it was covering everything with this mountain of cheese.
Right.
So I had to kind of like back it up a little bit and pull some of the fiddleheads to put them on top. But this tart also had an egg. You mix egg with cream.
Okay.
And pour it over. So you put your veggies, you put the egg, put your cheese. Okay, so I did kind of follow the recipe for that portion of it because I wasn't as familiar with this egg type thing. I had too much egg. The egg sort of ran all over the place. And I think it was an issue why the pastry didn't work as well, because I think I had too much egg. And I don't know if the recipe in the book was a bigger tart or like to hold that sort of eggy business.
Was it in a tart pan?
No, just on a cookie sheet. So that's why I think if you use a puff pastry, maybe you could make a bit more of a rim like with that, and it would puff up more.
I was going to say, I keep seeing this where they put the filling in the middle of a square.
Give it an extra layer around the outside of pastry. Yeah, I can see how that would work better. Because the pastry didn't work quite the way I expected it would.
What kind of pastry did the book suggest? Or did they have a pastry recipe?
Much like your recipe. Yeah, they have a pastry recipe, but it's like a pie crust. And yet somehow, well, in the picture, it's not real puffy either.
Yeah.
Whatever, it's fine.
I didn't notice any problems with the pastry. In terms of putting it into my face.
Okay, well, let's talk about how it tastes. I think I'll post the recipe with maybe I'll adjust the egg.
Right. What you think would work best, or
a little less egg, use a puff pastry, but let's talk about the flavors of this.
10 out of 10. I gave a silent signal of perfect because I really loved the flavors in this. I love leeks. I didn't know what kind of cheese it was. That surprised me. I thought
it's very creamy.
It's so I just really loved the way that the cheese wasn't perfectly evenly divided, right? When you do these tarts. And so it's like you get this bite, and all of a sudden you get this little bit of cheese that comes into each bite. Oh, it was so good. All I did was heat it up in my toaster oven because I looked at it and I was like, ooh, I have to eat this hot. I had 2 slices and I was really nice and shared the 3rd slice with my husband.
Oh, well, that was very kind of you.
And he almost bit my finger while I was feeding it to him. So there's your compliment of the day.
Chomp, chomp. You know what I liked The recipe is for an asparagus tart. And like we talked about a little bit, sometimes asparagus is stringy and hard
Mm,
to bite through. And what I really liked about the fiddleheads is that it's just a
yes.
clean bite. Like there's nothing stringy or weird about like
No, it's a
they just
perfect bite.
it's a
It just comes
perfect
right apart.
bite. Yeah, and they hold together in their little coils
Yeah.
and they're just like they're still kind of firm, like they don't go mushy. I
Hmm.
thought I thought they worked really like to cook these things. They hold their shape and their texture and their I thought it was so good.
They're so agreeable to
Was
being cooked.
agreeable and to being eaten.
Oh,
They're so
so.
agreeable.
And it looks beautiful. Like with that green, because they have such a dark, gorgeous color.
Yeah, and they keep the color
And
too.
they keep that color. And
Yeah.
then, like, the leeks have so much variety in color because there's everything from like very white to like a little bit of a light green, right? So you get like, I loved the way it looked.
Me too.
I was,
Mhm.
again, you text me that this is ready, and I'm like, how did this happen so fast? And then I saw what you sent me, and I was like, how did this happen so fast?
It's
It
a
was
quick recipe. I mean,
fantastic.
if you use puff pastry
Yeah.
and you remember to take it out of the freezer. See, I considered it because I had a roll in my freezer, a
Oh,
sheet,
dang.
but it was frozen and it takes some time to thaw puff pastry
Yeah, you
to be
can't
able
rush
to work.
that.
Yeah, so I thought if I want to do this today, then it's not going to be puff pastry. But if you have the forethought and you take out your puff pastry and you have that ready to go, you can even just kind of wing this one, honestly. Like saute those veggies, I guess you call them veggies, with what flavors you like. I use
Yeah.
thyme and salt and pepper and white wine in there, but you could do, I don't know, rosemary would be really good with that, or like
Oh, yeah.
you want a bit more something
Tarragon or something. You could really play with the flavors.
oregano. I think
Mm.
because they're those mild leeks and fiddleheads are quite mild, you can kind of flavor them the way you like.
Yeah.
And again, just adjust the egg. I think the egg gives it a bit of substance, like it kind of,
You know what that makes me think is these ingredients would be fantastic in a quiche.
oh, totally. Yes. Yeah. Or frittata.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yeah, like you
Mhm.
could really, I could really see those flavors. And especially because like an Emmenthal and a Gruyere both go so well in a quiche. Like,
Like with
yeah.
egg. Yeah, you could totally, that would be a
Mm.
really good quiche.
Now I
Mhm.
might have to hope. I'm hoping and praying that those packages
Get
of
back for the
fiddleheads
fiddleheads.
will be there.
You should have bought two.
I should have
Just,
bought two. Oh, by the way, they were $4.99 for 8 ounces. Did I tell you? Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
227 grams
Which was I used the whole package
for the pizza
for the tart.
tart.
I did not toss a single one out. Like
Fantastic.
they were all nice fiddleheads. Yeah, because sometimes you open a package, you don't know what's in. There might be a mushy one or a brown one or whatever. They were all edible.
That's good to know. Not
Really
like
good.
that orange you stick your thumb into when you get the box of oranges and you're like, oh.
Yeah, something a little funky in the bottom of
Sends a
the basket.
little shiver when you're like, hey, I'll just grab an orange for snack.
Ooh.
Oh.
That's what would have happened had I put them in my fridge and been like, okay, I'll make it on Saturday.
And then Saturday turns into Tuesday.
Yeah, it's like just get to it and get it done because you want to eat them while they're fresh, I think. That's, I
Yeah.
mean, because the season is so short,
Hmm.
you kind of got to get after it.
Yeah, if anyone forages fiddleheads or
Mm.
knows of anyone that forages fiddleheads, please let us know or like say hey, because I would like to hear more about this foraging process and
Yeah, where you do it, yeah, I'd be interested to know.
I'd be super interested to know.
Yeah, and how many, like if you're going out foraging, how many do you collect? Because I have no idea if you can like preserve them or freeze them or like save them in
Mm.
some way. I don't. I'd love for someone to tell us.
If you know more
But
about fiddleheads, you can contact us.
yeah, we'd love to hear about it. I'm so glad you found them.
I'm so glad I found them too, because the easiest part was picking them up and dropping them off. And then it turns around into my lunch. I could get used to this. This is why people have personal chefs.
Oh,
Like,
totally. And food delivery services. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was out somewhere when you called me. And so then after I wrapped that up, I was on my way home. I'm like, oh, what am I gonna do with those fiddleheads? And so I was like thinking about it because I'd already been thinking about it for a while now.
Yeah.
So I stopped at the store on my way home because I needed the cheeses. I didn't have the cheese.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, and the leeks. I picked up leeks because I decided that
Yeah.
I was already thinking about this tart. It was so easy to just pull together.
Quick, easy, delicious.
Put a pin in it for next year, everybody, for for fiddlehead season. If by the time you hear this, it has passed.
Grab those low-hanging ferns.
Oh no. Make a fiddlehead and leek French tart next spring.
Oui.
Oui, oui.
That's the only French we're attempting today. I'm
Bisous.
glad you didn't make us do any.
No, there's no French words in the making of this recipe.
Oh, thank God.
We did not have to learn any for this one.
And now for the fine print. Join us over on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on our website, threekitchenspodcast.com. Remember, when you like, follow, subscribe, and review, it helps more people find us. Thank you so much for listening.
I'm so glad we don't do video podcasts right now. Like,
the whole class.